This is me 1 year ago. This is me 4 months ago. And here I am today. What happened? I used to get a lot of hate, and people were suggesting, I was one step away from death. That caused a lot of reflection. And then I was like, off. Okay, so how did we get here? If you remember, when I started this project, we were trying to evaluate how close we are to being able to stop death. And the way we did that is we looked at all the scientific evidence on what you could do to slow down and reverse aging damage. And one of these therapies is known as caloric restriction, which means if a person like me consumes 2,500 calories a day to maintain the same weight, you'd reduce that. And so my caloric intake was 1,950 calories, substantially less. This caused me to lose a lot of fat, including in my face. So people started comparing me to Tilda Swinton. Now this was about 2 years into the project, and we were pretty ecstatic. The biomarkers we had achieved in me were pretty stunning. Remember, I was 43 years old when I started. I had led a life like poor health habits as a kid, 20 years of running myself into the ground as an entrepreneur, 10 years of chronic depression. I was in a really bad state of health, and in just 2 years' time, we turned it all around. My biomarkers were fantastic. We were excited. But when I went out in public, people were like, wait, is this guy gonna die? So there was a big disconnect between the success we were feeling as a team and the perception. It turns out that facial fat is really important to how someone gauges someone else's youthfulness. The problem was, no matter how good my biomarkers were, they would look at my face and say, that guy's old. So in response, we said, we're going to do Project Babyface. We know that in our youth, we have a lot of facial fat, that over time, it lessens. In fact, in your 20s, you start losing 1% of your collagen every year. So by the time you're 80 years old, you've lost 75% of what you had in your early 20s. We wondered, could I rejuvenate my face so I had much more volume? Endless fun, I love every second of it. Now that is a hard problem. You probably are aware that people use things like fillers to compensate for the loss of volume. It's why a face can look plump and round, but it's just filler. It's just masking the problem. We wanted to figure out if we could use legitimate rejuvenation technologies to restore volume in my face. There are 5 things I did to restore volume in my face. The first thing I did is Sculptra, which is a biostimulator. It's injected into certain regions of the face. For example, the temples, right around the mouth, through here. It's designed to allow your body to naturally produce collagen. So instead of putting filler in the face, which just expands in volume, you're getting actual collagen production. My protocol has been doing 2 vials every 6 months. I think the company recommends 1 per year, so I've exceeded what they're recommending. Also, I was compensating from a place of pretty serious deficit, not starting as a maintenance mode of 1 vial per year at say age 28 and going through time. I didn't do any until I was age 46 and I'd lost a lot of weight. So I've been trying to play a little catch up, but Sculptra is first. Next is I tried Renuva, which is fat transfer. Now ideally, you want to use your own fat. The problem was I didn't have enough fat on my body to do a transfer. And the doctor was concerned that if we tried to extract any fat I had, I would leave an indentation on my body. And so I used a donor's fat. When I did this, I had an extreme allergic reaction. In fact, the first day I did it, I met up with a reporter to do a story for Bloomberg, and on my way home, I blew up. Like I couldn't even see out of my eyes. I called him, I said, just a heads up, I'm gonna show up. It's me, you may not recognize it, but don't be scared. Because of the allergic reaction, we discontinued it. Now sadly, it was a promising technology. We were excited about it, and we thought it might be a really good path to revolumize, but because I reacted so profoundly, we just couldn't continue it. So that stopped after 1 therapy. Next is we decided to increase my daily caloric intake, going from 1,950 to 2,250. And we were probing, can we increase my calories while also maintaining the same biomarkers and also putting on more fat? And it worked. I gained 15 pounds, just under 7 kilograms, and that helped revolumize my face. I'll also note that my life substantially improved with a few more calories. At 1950, you're in a pretty serious deficit. You're hungry all the time. It's kind of painful, but I signed up for this and I was willing to do anything in order to achieve the objective. 1950, it turns out it was not necessary, as far as we can tell, to achieve the same level of biomarkers. So this is a good example of the experiment we're doing, where if caloric restriction is a promising idea and it's still emergent, then we're trying this out and we're measuring a bunch of biomarkers. If it doesn't need to be 20%, then we can move to 10. If it doesn't need to be 10, we can move to 0. It's still very early in the days of anti-aging. And so these kinds of experiments, I think, are at least interesting as a data point on how we think about the therapies and what impact they can have on our lifespans and health spans. Next is I lessened my intake of lutein, which is a carotenoid, from 20 milligrams to 15. And so I did that because it was making my skin yellow. And I think this is why so many people were confused. They saw me, I looked gaunt, I was yellow, and they're trying to make sense. Is this really what a healthy person looks like? And so a lot of people were thinking I had liver failure that I didn't know about, but it was simply because I had too much carotenoids in my diet, and of course that I was on too much caloric restriction. Finally, I did under-eye PRF, and that is when you do a blood draw and you separate the red blood cells from the plasma, and then you put the plasma back in the body. And this is what I did for my sprained ankle. It's what you can do for hair growth, which I don't do anymore. You can also do for under eye. And so over time, you lose volume under your eye. And there's only really two ways to revolumize. One is with filler. The other is this under eye PRF. The problem with filler is it can migrate and it become a nightmare. So I would strongly recommend you do not do filler under eye. It can be very complicated. Under eye PRF is helpful because it helps revolumize the lost volume. Also, it only lasts for like 3 to 6 months. So it needs to be something you repeat on a continued basis, but does in fact work and revolumize what you see disappear over time with age. And I do under eye PRF 3 times per year right now. The past few years has been wild. When I started Blueprint, I did not expect it to be a global phenomena. I did not expect to be scrutinized by everyone in the world. I did not expect to be compared to the most aesthetically pleasing, beautiful people in the world. People who have been on top of their aesthetic game their entire life. Growing up in a small community, no one really cared about aesthetics. You're just expected as you age to get fat, go bald. So I didn't apply face cream, for example, ever in my entire life until I was in my early 40s. I never played the aesthetics game. And it only, of course, became relevant when I started this endeavor and aesthetics became a meaningful part. It's been a complicated one because I've been trying to, of course, demonstrate something that's never been done before. And so it's hard, of course, for people to understand context. I do think we are at this meaningful moment in time where we are evolving as a species into something else. And I'm trying to indicate like this is a promising path for us to pursue. And so sometimes I do feel saddened that the project is by itself evaluated solely on face fat or some other aesthetic component and not upon these comprehensive biomarkers we have. But you know what? This movement needs to succeed. And to do that, there are some criteria, including volume in a face, that need to be met. I understand. I mean, the objective was, can I be biologically similar to my 18-year-old in every way, shape, or form? Now that sounds inconceivable today, but with enough time, is it? That is a question I think worth asking. As we head into the future, many of our preconceived notions may be challenged by things that come to pass. And when they do, I think it's going to be best for all of us to say, you know what? I have an idea about reality, but I'm wide open to thinking differently. And I think aging and health and wellness is going to be one of those things. So it's a reminder to me to always check assumptions, check my beliefs, because something may be hiding that may really be in my best interest if I could just see it. Be well. If you want to see how my body has changed throughout my life, check out this video here.